You know that feeling when someone is genuinely interested in you, texting back quickly, making time in their schedule, showing clear enthusiasm about getting to know you better, and somehow that just makes them less attractive. Like the second they reveal they actually like you, something in your brain clicks off and you start noticing all their flaws, questioning whether you're really that into them, maybe even feeling a little repulsed by their eagerness. But then there's that other person, the one who takes 3 days to respond, who's always vaguely busy, who keeps you guessing about whether they're even interested at all, and suddenly you can't stop thinking about them. You're checking your phone constantly, replaying your last conversation, trying to decode their mixed signals like you're deciphering ancient hieroglyphics, and the rational part of your brain knows this is ridiculous, knows you should be more interested in the person who's actually showing up for you, but you can't help it. The chase is intoxicating, the uncertainty is magnetic, and the moment they finally show interest back, if they ever do, there's this weird deflation like you just won a prize you no longer want. If this sounds familiar, you're not broken or shallow or emotionally damaged beyond repair. You're caught in a specific psychological pattern that has everything to do with how your brain learned to associate love with difficulty, and once you understand the machinery behind it, you can start to shift it. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when you're attracted to someone who's hard to get, because it's not about the person being objectively better or more desirable. It's about a neurochemical cocktail that gets activated specifically by uncertainty and pursuit. When someone is playing hard to get, whether intentionally or just because they're genuinely not that interested, they create what's called intermittent reinforcement in your reward system. Your brain releases dopamine not when you get what you want consistently, but when you get it unpredictably. This is the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. If a slot machine paid out every single time, you'd get bored immediately. But when it pays out randomly, unpredictably, your brain goes into overdrive, constantly anticipating that next hit of reward. The person who's hard to get is essentially a human slot machine, and every time they throw you a crumb of attention or affection, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree, releasing dopamine and reinforcing your desire to keep pulling that lever. Meanwhile, the person who's consistently available and responsive, they're predictable. Your brain knows exactly what to expect from them. So there's no mystery, no anticipation, no dopamine surge from uncertainty. They're the opposite of a slot machine. They're like a vending machine that always gives you exactly what you paid for, which is great for getting a snack, but terrible for triggering that addictive reward response. And here's the really messed up part. Your brain starts to interpret that lack of dopamine surge as lack of chemistry or attraction, when really it's just the absence of psychological manipulation. You've been conditioned to associate love with the neurochemical high of chasing someone uncertain, so when someone gives you stability and clarity, it feels flat by comparison. But let's go deeper, because this isn't just about brain chemistry. This pattern usually has roots in your attachment history, in how you first learned what love looks and feels like. If you grew up with inconsistent caregiving, where your parents' attention and affection were unpredictable, where you sometimes got warmth and sometimes got coldness with no clear pattern, your developing brain learned that love is something you have to work for, something that appears and disappears based on factors you can't quite control. And because your survival as a child, literally, depended on maintaining connection with your caregivers, you became hypervigilant to their moods and availability, constantly trying to figure out what would make them show up for you emotionally. That hypervigilance, that constant state of trying to earn love, becomes your template for what romance should feel like as an adult. So when you meet someone who's consistently available, who shows clear interest, who doesn't make you work for their attention, your nervous system doesn't recognize that as love. It feels wrong, too easy, suspicious even. Your brain is literally scanning for the familiar pattern of inconsistency and pursuit that it learned to associate with attachment. And when that pattern isn't there, when someone is just straightforwardly into you, your system interprets that as a lack of chemistry rather than recognizing it as healthy reciprocation. You've been training your whole life to climb mountains to reach love. So when someone offers you a nice flat path, you assume it must be boring because it doesn't match your internal map of what the journey to connection should feel like. There's also a self-worth component here that's absolutely crucial to understand. When you chase someone who's hard to get, you're unconsciously trying to prove something to yourself. If you can win over this person who's unavailable or disinterested or playing games, it will prove that you're valuable, desirable, worthy of love. It's like you're trying to retroactively fix all those times in childhood when you felt unseen or not good enough by getting this unavailable person to finally choose you. The fantasy is that their validation will heal that old wound, will finally make you feel secure in your worth. But here's the brutal truth. It never does. Because even if you do manage to win them over, even if they finally commit or show up or give you the attention you've been craving, it doesn't actually fill that internal void. You either find new reasons to doubt their sincerity, or you lose interest once the chase is over, or you find someone else who's unavailable to pursue. The wound you're trying to heal isn't about them. It's about you not believing you're inherently worthy of love without having to earn it through pursuit and performance. Let me give you a different framework for understanding this. When someone is hard to get, they become what psychologists call a partial reinforcement schedule. This is a concept from behavioral psychology that shows we become more attached to rewards that come inconsistently than to rewards that come predictably. Imagine two scenarios. Every time you push a button, you get $1. In the other, sometimes you get $1, sometimes you get nothing, and you can't predict which will happen. Research consistently shows that people will push that second button way more times with way more dedication than the first one. The inconsistency creates a compulsion to keep trying, to keep investing, because maybe this time will be the time. That's what's happening when you're pursuing someone hard to get. Every text they don't send, every plan they cancel, every mixed signal they give you is making you more invested, not less, because your brain is caught in this loop of trying to achieve that reward. And here's where it gets even more psychologically complex. The harder you have to work for someone, the more you convince yourself they must be worth it. There's a cognitive bias called effort justification, where we assign more value to things we've worked hard for, even if objectively they're not that valuable. It's why people who go through intense hazing to join a fraternity often become the most loyal members, or why someone who spent hours assembling complicated furniture will swear it's the best piece they own, even if it's kind of wonky. When you've invested massive amounts of time, energy, and emotional resources chasing someone, your brain has to justify that investment by making them seem incredibly special and valuable. Otherwise, you'd have to face the uncomfortable reality that you wasted all that effort on someone who wasn't that into you or who was playing games with your emotions. But let's talk about what happens when you actually get someone who was hard to get. There's this phenomenon where the moment they become available, the moment they show clear interest and commitment, suddenly you're not interested anymore. And that's because the whole attraction was based on the chase, not on actual compatibility or connection. You fell in love with the pursuit, with the fantasy of what it would be like if they chose you, not with the actual person. And when the pursuit ends, when the fantasy becomes reality, and you actually have to deal with them as a real, flawed, complicated human being, the magic disappears. It's like finally getting to the end of a really engaging mystery novel, only to realize the ending doesn't make sense, and you were really just enjoying the suspense all along. So what do you do if you recognize this pattern in yourself? How do you start breaking the cycle of only being attracted to people who are hard to get? First, you have to get brutally honest about what you're actually chasing. Are you pursuing this person because you genuinely like who they are, or because you like the feeling of pursuit? Are you attracted to their qualities and values and the way they show up in the world, or are you attracted to the challenge they represent? This requires some serious self-reflection, and the answers might be uncomfortable, but you can't change a pattern you're not willing to see clearly. You also need to start reconditioning your nervous system to recognize healthy reciprocation as desirable. This means when someone is consistent, available, and straightforward with you, instead of running away or finding them boring, you practice staying. You sit with the discomfort of not having to chase. You notice when your brain tries to create drama or problems where there aren't any, just to generate that familiar dopamine hit. You deliberately invest your attention and energy into people who show up for you, even when it feels strange or too easy at first. This is retraining your attachment system to accept that love can be stable and still be real. And perhaps most importantly, you need to work on developing internal validation instead of seeking it through winning over unavailable people. This means building a relationship with yourself, where your worth isn't contingent on someone else choosing you, especially not on someone who's been making you jump through hoops to earn their basic respect and attention. You have to learn to believe that you're valuable just as you are, not because you successfully convinced someone to see it. That's deep work, the kind that often requires therapy or serious self-reflection, but it's the only way to actually break this pattern. The person who's easy to be with, who communicates clearly, who shows up consistently, who doesn't make you guess where you stand with them, that person isn't boring. They're healthy. They're offering you the kind of relationship that actually has a chance of being fulfilling and sustainable. And the fact that it doesn't give you that neurochemical high of uncertainty doesn't mean it's not valuable. It means you've been so used to toxic relationship dynamics that healthy ones feel unfamiliar. But unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. Sometimes it just means different, and different might be exactly what you need. If this resonated with you, drop a comment about which part hit home. And if you want to keep exploring these patterns and how to shift them, hit that subscribe button. You're not broken for being attracted to people who are hard to get. You're just running old programming. And the beautiful thing about programming is it can be rewritten.